basically what I'm going to do, everyone, is I'm going to do just like a little bit of an overview of who we are, what the process is of going through making an application to Taikura, and what the process of the needs assessment is. A little bit of an overview of what types of supports are often available through disability support services with Whaikaha, and then a very brief discussion about whether provider or individualised funding, so those different options, and the opportunity for questions there. Can I ask everyone to possibly put themselves on mute? I think I'm getting quite a lot of feedback from it. I'm not sure which it's coming from. Sorry. Wait, okay, thank you so much. Well, kia ora everyone. My name is Emma Lothian. I'm the Pathways Project Manager at Taikura Trust. And yeah, really happy to join you all tonight. So yes, please do pop any questions that you've got in the chat, or do feel free to chime in if you've got a question that's sort of pertinent to where we're at and you're worried you'll forget about it. Feel free to ask at the time. Otherwise, there will be an opportunity at the end to ask questions as well. So yeah, we'll go from there. So who are we? We're a charitable organisation that was founded by iwi, disabled people and Pacific communities in 2001. And the purpose was to deliver needs assessment and service coordination NASC support in Auckland. So we're the largest NASC provider in New Zealand. So 1 in 3 people in Aotearoa who receive disability support engage with us. And at the moment we have more than 16,000 disabled people registered with our service, and demand is growing. So the numbers are ever increasing. Who do we support? We support people with a disability and their whānau to access Whaikaha funded supports and services. So like other government funding programs, there is eligibility criteria for people to meet and to be able to access those Whaikaha supports. So the general idea is that we support people who are under the age of 65 who have a disability that is going to be ongoing after provision of modifications or equipment, or they've had rehabilitation. That disability is going to be ongoing for at least 6 months, and that the person will require ongoing support after that. So the general domains of disability under Whaikaha is physical disability, which is about 10% of our of people with us. Intellectual disability is about 31%. Autism is about 43% and about 60% of our new referrals. So massive numbers under autism in our service. Sensory disabilities, people who are deaf or blind, and some neurological conditions like motor neuron disease, MS, Parkinson's disease, that type of thing as well. So who can make an application to our services? People can refer themselves to our services. So you can go onto our webpage at taikura.org.nz. We actually have a new that's always being updated, but you can go on there and go to the referral tab, and then you'll be able to get into our referral form, which is fairly easy to use. Alternatively, a GP, medical professional, or someone's whānau can apply on their behalf as well, as long as they have consent of the person with a disability to do so. And alternatively, you can also call our 0800 number and ask for the Pathways team if you need any assistance with making an application, or you're not sure about something with it. Or if you're not sure if you're eligible for supports, we can have that conversation with you as well and help support. Also, not everyone finds it easy to go through an online form, so absolutely can help out over the phone or in any other way, really, if there's a different need. So in terms of the information requirements of the person who is applying, we need their full name, their date of birth. If you know your NHI, include it, but if you don't, that's fine. We need to know the person's address and their contact phone number and their email if they have one. And if the person hasn't referred themselves, then whoever it is who's done the referral, we need to have the details of that person, because we'll usually try and arrange and contact them to help arrange for the assessment and everything like that. And we also need some clinical documentation that describes the disability and how it affects the person. So in terms of that supporting documentation, it can be a clinical letter or a report or any other documentation from an appropriate clinician. So that needs to include the person's identifying information, what date the document was, the specialist details, their name, qualifications, and contacts. It needs to have a clear description of the disability and how it affects the person and what their need for support is. And so that basically is what helps us just determine if we're going to be able, if the person is likely to qualify for DSS supports and therefore be able to go through and get a needs assessment. So each application is reviewed by the Pathways team, and that's just determining whether or not they're likely to be eligible for that whaikaha funding. If it turns out that the person is not likely to be eligible, then the Pathways team does get in contact still. It's not just a straight no in any way. It's very much that we'll be in contact with you. We'll let you know other places that you might be able to get support. We can let you know about mainstream supports, guide you to other needs assessment, other NASCs, or anything else that might be able to support you. So absolutely, you can come for support. Even if it isn't DSS support, we're still going to be able to help provide education and, guide you down the right path. If you are eligible, then our Pathways team will explain the next steps of the process and what type of assessment works for you, so what type of kōrero that's going to be. So sorry if I'm rushing through too much. Did anyone have any questions at the moment? Cool. So in terms of the needs assessment, our bookings team will be in touch with the person or with the person who's referred them to arrange a needs assessment. And this is something that can take place in person, it can be online, it can be on the phone, lots of different options. We really support people to have their whānau with them or a support person or whoever it is that they would like to have there during that needs assessment. Whatever makes you feel more comfortable, basically. Interpreters are also available if needed, and that can be booked at the same time as the booking. If there are any other needs that you have, let the booking team know, and we do our best to help out however we can. Needs assessments aren't as formal as they sound. It's really much more of a conversation. So the idea of that conversation is to try and get a good idea about what's a good life for the person. Like, what is a good life for you? What plans do you have? What goals do you have? We're just trying to find out what support you might require to be able to achieve those. So some of the discussions or questions might be like, what does your everyday life look like? What are the things that are really going well for you? What are the areas that you think could be better? Like, what could we do to support you to help achieve those things, make life easier? And we also have conversations about how you'd like the care to be provided, because there are a lot of different options as well. So I think sometimes a needs assessment sounds quite scary, but it really is a conversation. They can be quite long. It can be up to a couple of hours for those conversations sometimes. So if people do need to break that into two, or they need to, from a fatigue point of view, we can absolutely have those conversations as well. That's something you can discuss with the bookings team or with one of the people in Pathways when they call you up to arrange. So really important to remember that supports are based not on your disability, they're based on your support need. So you might have the same person with the same, you might have two people who have the same disability, but that doesn't mean that the support package would be the same, because everybody is so different and everyone has different support needs, different goals. What makes a good life is very different for different people as well. So it's important to remember that everything is really individual and that that's what it's based on as well. Following that session, then what happens next is that support facilitator who's come out and met with you, they'll go back home, they'll go back to the office. They're going to draft up a support package based on the information that the person has provided, so that they're basically sort of looking at which supports are likely to be able to help achieve the person's goals, what's going to help fill the need. And then what happens is they then go back to the person and their whānau and discuss the supports that they think are going to be good. Everyone has a discussion about that. If it sounds as if it isn't going to work, or there's things that aren't quite there, it's really important to remember that it is it's the person's plan. It's your plan if it's your plan. So it's meant to work for you. So it's important to have that open conversation so that it is actually meeting your needs as well. So always good to remember. So does anyone have any questions up to there around eligibility, documentation, needs assessment? It's probably a good time if you've got any questions about any of those. All right. Is there anything in the chat I need to see?
Yeah, there's a question in the chat.
Oh, cool.
Thanks, Emma.
That's all right. Just see if I can have asking about the needs assessment. Can you do it by phone? Yeah, absolutely. No problem with that at all. And hold on, sorry, just going through this other one. Cool, sorry, just going through here. So yes, absolutely, you can have the needs assessment. It can be virtual, so it can be virtual over Teams. It can be just on the phone. If people want to do it in person, they can. But yeah, absolutely, very, very free to do either of those versions. And in terms of different budgets moving from Auckland to another area, difficult to, what I would say is on an individual basis, it's hard to answer that question about what it is that might have caused that reduction, just because, yeah, as I said, everyone's plans are so individual, like how they're determined. So I'm not sure if that was based on a new needs assessment or something like that. But yes, always good to have those discussions. What I would say is that if your needs are not being met by your new plan, then it is really important to have a conversation. I'm assuming from the person's statement that they've moved away from Auckland to another area. If that's incorrect, apologies. But if that is the case, then what I would say is make sure that you're having a conversation with the needs assessment agency that you are now working with, because if you find that your plan isn't meeting your needs, then you absolutely would have an ongoing conversation to explain what areas aren't being met by the current plan. And then that is something that should be able to be reassessed if that is the case, because, you know, it is meant to meet your needs. So, yeah, I hope that that helps in terms of answering that question. Sweet. Alrighty. So in terms of the types of disability services, there's personal cares. So personal cares is for people who need assistance with showering, toileting, taking their medications, eating, dressing themselves, anything that sort of falls under that category, that's under your personal cares. There's household management. So that's available for people who have a current community services card. That can be a bit of a limitation for some people as well, but that's the current criteria through Whaikaha. So household management is for people if they need any support with, let's say, meal preparation, going for their grocery shopping, doing the laundry, cleaning in the home, like home hygiene, that type of thing is what falls under your household management. Oh, so going to play ball. Cool. There's carer support. So carer support tends to be more informal respite. So this is something that's available for full-time carers, and the general definition under Whaikaha is that that's someone who provides 4 hours or more of unpaid care per day to the disabled person. So that's the person who's considered to be the full-time carer. So in terms of that carer support, the whole idea of it is that it's meant to be able to give that person a break so that they're able to sort of renew themselves, be able to continue with that caring, provide that support so that they're able to carry on. So how you can use that is you can basically claim for expenses that are a necessary part of supporting the person with a disability while the full-time carer has a break. So that could be paying a substitute carer or subsidizing something for that carer, or it could be the disabled person doing an activity and you helping subsidize that in different ways. There's a lot of purchasing guidelines, but there are some items that you can also purchase that are included within the purchasing guidelines. I'm sure anyone who's been looking at Whaikaha recently is aware that there's been a lot of changes to those guidelines, and that has caused a lot of really has caused a lot of stress and strain to people around the different ways that can be used. So yeah, it's always best to check in with the guidelines if you're looking at how you want to use that if you're looking at purchasing items, because that has changed a few times. Yeah, Clem, go ahead.
Hey, there's a question here. Can personal care and household management be given at the same time?
One, it would depend on the provider who is providing it, because some, like if you're going for provider supports rather than individualized funding, not all providers are able to fill all categories. So some might be able to provide household management, but not personal care, and some might be able to do the other way around. But yes, I think particularly if you're getting both of those through the same provider, it's very likely that the person does require both household management and personal care. So you don't have to have one or the other. You are able to have both. Yeah, Kate.
I just want to say that when I broke my ankle and couldn't really do much of anything for myself, I was able through in Auckland, of course, that was I think it was called Access, and they provided both for me because I couldn't put any weight on it for ages. And
Yeah, gotcha. Was that through Te Whatu Ora that was?
that was through. I went through Taikura and
Oh, okay. Yeah, cool.
yeah, it was through Taikura, and then they directed me to a provider called Access, and they did both, and it was
awesome.
actually really cool. Yeah,
yeah. I think
I just
definitely.
wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you. No, that's great. And I mean, that is the ideal situation, really, is that you try and have one provider who's able to sort of, provide multiple of your supports as a part of your package, so that it is a little bit smoother for people. But yes, you can have both of those. Sorry, I'll just have a quick look.
There was another question here. If you're working, can you still have are you still eligible? But Jordan, you just put that question up and then it just disappeared again. Did I just imagine it?
What I would say is, in terms of household management, it's dependent on whether you have a current community services card or not. So if
Okay.
so it's more as long as your community services card is current, then household management you're eligible for it. And
So like if you get a job, you won't be eligible to for your guys' services.
You're definitely eligible for the majority of everything. The only one that has the criteria about the community services card is the household management, in terms of the supports. So yeah, that's the only one.
So the all the other stuff I'll be eligible, but except the household stuff.
Yeah, generally so.
Yeah, would that also depend on your income though as well, because people who are working could potentially still be eligible for a community services card, can't they, based on their income?
Absolutely. Yeah, it just depends. I mean, it's income tested, so it just depends how high your income is. And also I think how high the household's income is as well, not just like the individual, depending if you're, so it depends.
How about if the person is starting is wanting to start work, but he still wants to get his still be eligible for the services?
Just for the household management?
No, to get how do you say it? Like,
sorry, that broke up a little bit. Sorry, can you ask that again?
can you still be eligible to get to be entitled to the things that you get from Taikura, but you're getting into work?
Emma, can I give an example from work?
Oh, please, yeah.
So we Jordan, hi, it's Karen. We've met.
Hello.
We employ disabled people, as you know, and one of our disabled people, when they were working in the office, had their personal cares taken care of at the office. So they didn't lose any of that, and they still had their salary. And then they also had the household management at home. Does that help as an example?
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's important to remember that disability support services, like overall, whether you're working or not, you are eligible for disability support services. The only one that has the criteria about the community services card is the household management.
Okay.
Yeah. So, like, if, for example, you had personal cares and you had carer support and you had respite care,
that's the one.
You'd be fine working, because it's not based on income, it's based on need, and it's just the household management that needs the community services card.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have to have a current community services card.
Only for household management.
Okay.
So that's only if you needed support with like doing your shopping or your laundry or prepping meals and that sort of thing. So that's what your household management generally is. So it's only if you need support with that you'd need a community services card for that one specifically. Otherwise, everything is as is basically.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
No worries. Yeah, that's all good. So yes, we went through carer support already, didn't we?
There's one more question
regarding
about how to get a community services card again if it's expired.
I believe you go through WINS for community services card, don't you? Yeah. Taikura wouldn't do the community services card. I mean, depending. I mean, to be fair, if you have respite care or supported independent living, or you have someone who does help you access those things, then someone is going to be able to sort of help you fill in the forms or provide that support. But Taikura isn't able to sort of do the application on your behalf, if that makes sense. But yes, go to WINS and they'll be able to help you out with getting that updated. Alrighty. Sorry, this is now loading. Cool. So I did actually finish the carer support, didn't I? Before the questions, I think. Yeah. Because I started to talk about the individualized funding, opened that can. So the other types of disability services that we have there's respite care. So there's different types of respite care that you can have. You can have out-of-home respite, so that tends to be used for the disabled person to have, could be like an overnight stay or a couple of days stay at a residential facility generally. Which facility that is depends where you are in Auckland, and also your age and what the disability is depends about where you go for that residential support. But when people go for that out-of-home respite, then they're getting the opportunity to meet other people, and there's often some really fun activities that go on at the houses as well. So that's your out-of-home respite. So that's for the full-time carer to have a rest, and it's for the person with a disability to be out of the home and have a different experience as well. So there's also in-home respite. So that is often aimed at building life skills for people. So it's an opportunity for socialization. So it might be someone that comes in and is a buddy for the person, or they could be doing some mentoring with them. It can be helping the person access the community or build up some more independence in their life skills, learning to catch the bus, make phone calls, that type of thing. So that's your respite. Then some other options are supported independent living. So this is for people who are over 16 who are looking to basically build up more of their skills to be able to live more independently. So,
yes, I'm looking at that.
What's that, sorry?
I'm wanting to do that.
You're wanting to do that. Awesome. Yeah, that's cool. Definitely talk to your NASC if you have one about what those plans and goals are, and then they can figure out how they're able to support you with it. Because it's basically looking to help provide, like, if the person, there's a lot of people who've been, like, for example, living at home and they're really interested in being able to maybe live in the community or build those independent skills, but it might be that they're they're not sure how to write a CV, or they don't know how you job hunt, or how to catch public transport, or there's a lot of different skills that people can build so that they're able to live more independently. And that's sort of the goal of that supported independent living, is putting in some support to help people achieve those goals. There's also community residential services. So this is for people who require support throughout all of the day. So it's for a lot of our participants who, for example, might have a severe intellectual disability, or they might have a physical disability that requires 24-hour care. So it's basically for people who do require 24-hour support with daily activities. And so, yes, that's available for people with a physical or intellectual disability that qualifies them for that. Within that, there's choices in community living, which is an alternative to the residential services. So, yeah, there's also quite specific criteria for that as well. And then some other options that are there for people are educational and behaviour support services. So that's a one-off 12-month program that can be delivered by Explore, who's the behaviour support service. And that's to help people with a behaviour support plan to help reduce the impact of behaviours on the person and their whānau, and help build up a support plan for how to manage that. And then the other one that comes up for people is support lifestyles for children. So that's, again, a one-off program. Oh, yeah, sorry, Kate, did you want to comment on that one?
Sorry, hi. I just had a question about the education and behavioural support service. So
Yeah.
would that be, for example, somebody with severe autism could access something like that?
Yes. So, yeah, that might
Or
be...
would that be...
Honestly, I think it's relatively broad, but it would be anyone who was sort of experiencing some challenging behaviours that was sort of making their life challenging, or making the whānau's life challenging, or there's maybe, often it could be an area of the day like, bath time or teeth brushing or something like that causes a lot of distress for everybody. So it might be that that could be someone with severe autism with sensory issues who's finding it quite distressing to need to brush teeth or have a shower or something like that. So the behaviour support plan, because usually a lot of behaviour is more around like communication than anything else. So it's really trying to figure out what that communication is and how they're able to go in and sort of put a plan in to help manage that for everybody. But yeah, autism is a pretty common one for that.
Right. And this is, in this particular case, the two brothers, the older brother is severely autistic, the younger brother is got a mild autism diagnosis, as well as ADHD, but they fight, and it's a solo mum. So that's why I'm asking, and I'm just wondering if that sort of situation is very specific, I know, but
would be the answer to that. Yeah, behaviour support might, depending what the cause of the fight is, obviously, but but yes, it would be worth exploring if that was something that they were able to get. That basically behaviour support is through Explore. So Explore are the ones who provide those programs. They do have some fairly significant wait lists, but it's definitely worth going and having a look on their website and seeing what resources are available there as well. And they talk a little bit more about their behaviour support and different programs that are available, because they do also have like a targeted parenting program and like another educational program that can be really useful for parents, particularly if they have their child has just recently received a diagnosis of autism, because it helps provide them a whole lot more information, or even honestly, if it's not a new diagnosis, but as the person is aging and experiencing different challenges, they might be getting exactly like having different experiences. So it's something where often those education programs, I think the education program is free, and people, I think, can refer themselves for the education one. The behaviour support, you do have to be referred in, because that is part of disability support services. But yeah, definitely suggest having a look at Explore's website, because there's a lot of useful stuff on there, which is worth it.
That's fantastic information. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries. Absolutely. Happy to help.
Okay.
And then the other one is the support lifestyles for children. So that one is basically a 12-month program where, particularly for people if there's a new diagnosis with their children, and there's suddenly, a lot of people are suddenly being hit with a whole lot of information. There's a whole lot of different organizations that they're having to be involved with. And, with the way that the healthcare system works, it's like you might be having to liaise with the Ministry of Education, you might be going with Te Whatu Ora, you might be going with Waikaha, you could be sort of all over the place with a lot of different information as well. So that program is aimed at supporting families with like navigating that situation and helping to advocate and liaise, and they can help with applications, they can go along to they can actually go along to appointments with people as well. So it's something that can be really useful for people, particularly when they're in the early days of a diagnosis, like to provide more support there as well. So that's something else that's also available. Very brief discussion on individualized funding versus provider-based funding. So basically what this is there's two different ways that you can get your funding. So if you qualify for DSS supports, which is basically under Waikaha. So in terms of individualized funding, what happens with that is that you're allocated an annual budget, and that's based on your support needs. And that would be made up, let's say, if you needed personal cares and you needed some household management and you had some respite care, those parts would make up your budget. And then that budget is held with a IF host, which is an individualized funding host, which is through Waikaha. They have a contract there. And then what happens is that you or an agent that you're working with are able to use that funding flexibly throughout the year to manage your support. So it's important to think with that individualized funding, there is often more flexibility around how you're able to use the funding. But the other side of it is that there is also quite a lot of administration that's associated with that, because rather than going to a provider who, you basically say, this is my support package, here's the provider that's going to support those things. They're doing all of the employment side of everything. They're doing all of the police vetting and the checking. If there's sick leave, they're going to be organising a different support worker to come out to see you. If you're doing flexible funding with the individualised funding, then you're responsible for finding the people who are going to provide your supports. You're going to need to make sure that you're, paying the minimum wage, making sure that you're on the right side of employment law. You're doing a lot of that administration as well. So for some families, it's amazing. The flexibility works really well for them. For other people, it's overwhelming, and the administration side of it doesn't work. So it's really individualized who it works really well for and who it doesn't. So it's really worth, when you're having those needs assessment, having a lot of discussion about sort of where you're at and what works for you, because then you can put that in. So in terms of if you go for provider-based funding, then Taikura will engage with the external service providers. So this is basically after you've had the needs assessment, you've got a support package that's been put in place, you've decided that you want to go for provider funding. Taikura then engages with external service providers that are contracted by Waikaha, and they discuss your support plan, and then basically that external agency comes in and provides those supports for you as determined by that support plan. If at any point you're having any concerns or questions about that provider, Taikura is absolutely able to help with that. Like if you have any questions or concerns, you can also have those questions or concerns you can discuss with the agency as well. If you do go with IF funding, then as mentioned, you need to go to an individualized funding host and they hold your budget. You liaise directly with them about how you would like to use that funding flexibly within the guidelines, and they'll help support you about what is and is not possible. But also really important to remember that funding that's been allocated to meet a need needs to be used for that need. So for example, if you had a certain amount of money that was for personal cares and then you had a certain amount of money that was for respite, you can't top up either one of those from the other area of your budget. You have to use it for what it's been allocated for, because it's to meet a need that you have, and that's why it's been allocated. So always good to remember that as well. So with plans that are put in place, typically they're in place for about 12 months, and then they're reviewed to check that everything is working well. although people's needs absolutely change. And as I was saying to the person who asked about it before, you know, if your needs are not being met, or things have changed, or, you know, something's not working, then absolutely you get in touch with the NASC. Like, so for us, you basically can request an early review. You can get in touch with us on the phone or email, or, you know, any of those different ways. And what we do is we'll then come and have a conversation and figure out what it is that isn't working, and reassess the plan at that time. So, more questions? I can see there's a few in the